I've never serviced.
Currently back east.
So the company that does is called Polish, and they are.
Oh, yes, so she owes you a call, for sure.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, oh, it's been a nightmare, 2 months. They don't answer their phone, they.
Right, I tried to get them.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here this morning. We're gonna go ahead and start with the introduction. Morning.
Oh.
We'll get those going. Melissa, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Melissa Steele, Fire Inspector, Bend Fire and Rescue and the Rural District.
Gabe Couch, Tetro Owners Association.
I am Craig Lutz with Tamarack Wildfire Consulting.
I'm Kyle Collins with the Deschutes County Planning Division.
Morning, Trevor Miller, Deputy Fire Staff Fuels for Coffins.
Diane Holmes with the Bridges at Shadow Glen HOA.
Good morning, Eric O'Cullen, Deschutes Soil and Water Conservation District.
Good morning, Dean Richardson of Deschutes River Communities.
I'm Ray Meow, Woodside Ranch Homeowners Association and Rural Fire Protection District number 2.
Patty Dare, Deschutes County Commissioner number 3.
I'm Lon Lee with Harvey Butte Owners Association.
And Kevin Moriarty, County Forester.
And Nixon.
I'm Nick Levi, County Administrator.
We're gonna add another camera soon, I'm sure.
If you're online with us today, if you could please do your introduction in the chat for me, that helps me with my meeting minutes, so I know who all was here. I appreciate that. And then Kevin is gonna do a couple updates for us.
Sure, so let's see, updates, we can start kind of on some of the grants out there. That Oregon State Fire Marshal Community Wildfire grant that we received. We're working on that right now. You know, we've put a little bit of money into our fall fuel program, and then we're also looking at a sweat equity program. So we're kind of working on that right now, trying to utilize that funding. For the Deschutes County Fuel Reduction Grant, that's the grant that we actually issue out. We have 70,000 available. The application deadline for that is September 22nd. So if you haven't applied and you feel like you would be eligible, please apply for that grant. It should be pretty easy to find. You can just go to our Deschutes County Natural Resource page, and that grant application is there. And then the other grant out there is the Community Wildfire Defense Grant that is also out. We are gonna do a couple applications on that. The main one, or the main two, is one, we're gonna work with the road department to do some right-of-way work. They already do the work already, but we're just gonna bolster their program by applying for some extra funds in South County. And then the other piece of that is for our community wildfire protection plans. And so we're proposing to apply for a grant to combine our 7 community wildfire protection plans into one. We feel this will be a little bit easier for grant funding and a little bit easier to work through the process. So those are kind of the grants out there. I was going to have Kyle give a brief update on the wildfire hazard map and kind of how that process is going.
Yeah. So the Oregon Department of Forestry just released a new draft version of the map. Hasn't been made available kind of to the broader public yet. So the first step in this sort of slow, what I'll call the slow rollout of the new maps, is they've sent them all out to Association of Oregon County members. They've already gone through District 1 of Association of Oregon County to kind of show them the maps, what the new maps are likely to look like, and then take feedback. They're moving on to District 2, which includes Deschutes County. There'll be a meeting with all those county members this week. Kevin's going to attend in person. Some other members of the Community Development Department are going to tune in. Planning staff gave an update to the Board of County Commissioners last week on the maps, that just a general overview of this is what the new maps look like, this is what the old maps look like, and then kind of next steps moving forward. Our understanding of how that process is going to happen from this point now is once all the Oregon counties have had a chance to weigh in, all those decision makers, they'll actually release a draft version more broadly to the public. They'll then go through a round of feedback from just general community members, as well as additional follow-up feedback from decision makers at each of the county and city levels. And then they'll do the actual formal rollout, which begins the appeals process for any property owners that might have been mapped as high and feel they were incorrectly mapped. We don't know an exact timeline of when all that's gonna go out, but our understanding is probably sometime in spring of next year is when we'll actually start seeing a formal press release out from the Oregon Department of Forestry and Oregon State University and the ability to comment and see the map more broadly. So still a little bit of a waiting game, but this is kicked off again, so to speak, after a pretty long hiatus. But if anyone has any questions, I can tell you what I know at this point.
All right, did anyone have any questions on that?
On the rollout you're having this week
Correct.
for district number 2, is the Deschutes County Rural Fire Protection District included in that for comments?
I believe at this stage, it's just for the elected decision makers in each county. So it's the Association of Oregon County Members. It was the intention of ODF, as my understanding, is to get their feedback first before this broader rollout related to general community members. I know there's some fire protection districts that are participating in that. It's not clear exactly what that feedback process is going to look like. I doubt they're going to change anything on the fly or be able to answer a lot of the questions. And so it really is more of like an informational session in some sense.
Ray, if you have comments, the meeting is on Thursday afternoon, so I would suggest if you could get them to me like by tomorrow night, so I can review them and everything. But honestly, the map by me, there is a huge hay ranch with 2 million gallon ponds, and it's designated high danger. Yeah, and I'm going like, so it's just like this broad brush again.
Right, it's large.
Mhm.
Right. Be interesting to be able to see the map at least.
I will say best option for seeing the map right now. I don't have copies of them. Apologies on that end. But if you were to go to the Deschutes County meeting page for last Wednesday and review the commissioners meeting, you'll actually see a packet in there where we've included a version of the draft map that you can download.
You can.
Thank you.
Of course.
Well, thank you for that update, Kyle, appreciate that.
Kevin, I got a question for you on the sweat equity.
Sure.
Is there gonna be an application process with similar to the fall grant, or is that a little different?
Maybe not this fall. I think once we kind of feel it out a little bit on what the demand is, we might be able to separate that from the grant process. It's actually just a sign up for request.
Okay.
But what essentially all I've been doing is including that request in the fall grant application. And then if you're not applying for the fall grant application, to just request individually through.
Got it.
Let's see, lastly, I guess there's no easy way to say this. There will be no fire-free event this fall. It sounds like they're at peak capacity as far as trying to process all the debris that they have at the landfill right now. The fire-free event is actually run through Deschutes Recycling. It's not an official Deschutes County event, even though we've kind of taken it under the umbrella of fire-free. And so it's really up to the decision of Deschutes Recycling to do that. And the place where they would stage the material, they don't even have the room right now. And so they've just decided to not have it this fall and to reevaluate in the future.
You mean not to have it next spring?
No, the spring one will happen because that is an actual Deschutes County event, but this one is ran through Deschutes Recycling. It's not an official Deschutes County event. We just learned about this fall.
Like yesterday?
Yeah.
So if you did wanna do something in the fall, maybe the sweat equity program.
Yeah, so there won't be the services to provide a discount at the landfill itself, but we are providing that sweat equity program. So hopefully that will offset some of the costs for communities. Yeah. So that's all I have for updates. Any other questions?
Didn't you just say, did you say that we got another 100,000 for Juniper removal?
Yes, for the BLM Community Assistance Agreement, they've added another 100,000 to that agreement. And that is essentially to do similar work within the county that we're already doing. So treating properties adjacent to BLM land and primarily focusing on defensible space around those properties. So that's essentially 100 feet around structures. And that could include juniper or brush removal to reduce that reduction. So if you do have folks who are interested in that program, they are adjacent to BLM ground, just have them contact me directly. And I believe that's all I have for updates.
Right. So Kevin, how is that pairing with any ODF activities and the significant amount of funding they've received for similar landowner? You guys in communication,
Yeah.
trying to mesh that to
Yeah.
bolster total allocations out to folks?
So, yeah, so Ross has, you know, kind of that, his community assistance program, his cost share program that he works with individual landowners. So, you know, the big thing that we stay in communication is essentially that we're not double dipping per se. You know, if they're funding that particular piece of land through a grant program, you know, it'd probably be in our best interest to not fund it for the same exact project. So
yeah.
And it's just working in communication with Ross on that. Most of the allocations so far, or the requests, have been more on a community scale, but I have had a few with individual landowners. And a lot of times that it falls out of their protection zone, so there's only a few areas where it's within the protection zone where they would have the funding, and then, you know, there might be some communication to make sure we're not, you know, providing funding for the same project.
Update questions? So today we have Trevor Miller here from the Forest Service. He's gonna give us an update on what's going on in Deschutes County with Forest Service projects and maybe a little bit on wildfire season. Welcome and thank you.
Yeah, sure. So not sure if Sean Hawk is online. You can tell or not, or Sean, if you are, speak up. Can't see.
I don't see him.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll provide sort of an update on the fuels and project side of the house, and then give you what I know about fire season, certainly. So yeah, I think we'll just kick it off up north in Sisters Country. So I'm sure most folks are familiar with the Green Ridge project. So that remains in consultation. We're working with Fish and Wildlife Service on a number of issues associated with that project. For folks that don't know, that's up in the Metolius Basin up above Camp Sherman. It's been an ongoing large fetch project, and we're continuing to work with Fish and Wildlife to resolve some objection issues, and are hopeful in the next few months that we'll have a decision signed on that and start work. The other big initiative in Sisters is the Cougar Rock project, which is kind of that southeast perimeter of Sisters proper, Garrison Country up to Ponderosa Pine and Cattle land in holding there. So that's in process. Also consultation with Fish and Wildlife due to primarily wolf in the area. So as wolf became threatened and we've had, you know, sightings up in the Sisters area, we had to kind of backtrack on that project and do consultation for wolf. So we're hopeful that's going to continue to move forward. That's a significant hazardous fuels project, really sort of the last buffer of Sisters community proper on the southeast side of town. Something that's been on the radar for many years for us in the fuels and fire world, and with the priority landscape funding and the ability to get in there without necessarily merchantable timber, that option has certainly come more on the table than it has in the past. Finally, for Sisters, Black Butte Ranch WUI is a new initiative that's essentially just starting to be kicked off. So that project is basically west of Black Butte Ranch proper. It'll be looking at primarily just fuels treatments out to the west of Black Butte, which we've done work in that area in the past, but we're just bolstering that further out to the west for that typical west to east progression of wildfire that we deal with so frequently. In terms of what's ongoing in Sisters, we've had, I'm sure everybody in the room has heard of the National Priority Landscape and the Central Oregon Landscape. So we're one of the 21 priority landscapes in the nation associated with the wildfire crisis strategy. Basically what that has meant, outside of lots of folks interested in our landscape, is additional funding to push through a lot of projects that we haven't been able to in the past. So Sisters had a successful fiscal year 23 with a number of contracts finalized and pushed out the door. Most of those have not begun work, but we anticipate work beginning on them this fall, essentially. Once we were waiting for the funding, we've received the funding, the contracts were pushed through, and now we can start work in those areas. So of interest, most of it kind of remains in that Safer and Melvin country. So a lot of finalizing of work that's been ongoing that we haven't gotten to. So a number of mastication and small tree thinning contracts west of Sisters and sort of the 16 road up to Three Creeks Lake country. And then a large contract associated with really roadside brushing throughout the district to allow ingress, egress, and establish some containment features on the landscape. So that's like 300 miles of road that we just finalized that contract, and that will essentially build some roadside brushing and fuels treatments along established roads that we can use in the future for containment purposes. Any questions on Sisters? Okay, so moving down to Bend Fort Rock, couple large veg management projects were pushed through the door this year, fiscal year 23, that we've been working on for the last few years. So that's Cabin Butte, which is south of town, large veg, primarily fuels driven project to protect sort of the south side of town. That has been finalized, a decision has been signed, no objections, and we've started essentially layout in that area, and our first sale should be finalized by the 30th of September, we hope. That's called the Fish Timber Sale, and that will be our first entry into sort of that south boundary country again in the Cabin Butte area. Following that, over the next 2 to 3 years, there'll be 3 more IRSCs, which are kind of service contracts with the timber component, but a significant amount of fuels work also goes with those larger contracts. So first one out the door will be Fish. It's a straight timber sale, and then after that, it's all going to be service-based contracting with a timber component that the receipts are actually used to pay for some of the fuels work. So we're very excited that that's about to occur, and that's a great project, and I anticipate being in there for the next few years, certainly. Second to that is the Clone project area, which is just east of Sun River proper. So that has been signed as well, and we'll look at 2025 to begin work in that area. And the first large project in the Clone area will be a service contract with a timber component that helps pay for the rest of the work. In addition, a new project, really WUI fuels based, is the Boundary Project, which we're just kicking off, and that essentially goes from West Bend up to 41 Road, kind of on the west boundary, all the way north past Sun River. And that's primarily focused on some of that roadside work that I just discussed in terms of ingress, egress, building containment features on the landscape, and then a lot of maintenance work for past work that's been completed that's more or less regrown in with brush and small trees. So that's just kicking off. That will be a categorical exclusion, so it should be a relatively quick process, hopefully. Probably a year out before we start work in that. As far as what occurred in fiscal year 23 in Bend Fort Rock, a number of accomplishments, which some of those I just relayed to you with cabin. So fish going out, a large mastication project in the Rocket and West Bend area, a large PCT and pile project, again in the Rocket project area, which is just north of Sun River. As you kind of go up and over Lava Butte, you guys have probably seen some of the work that's been going on in there. Secondary to that, the Bob and Jag project area. We've been in there for a number of years. Not much of the fuels work had been completed. So strategically, we're looking at finalizing that whole project area, and that's as you go up the 42 road out of Sun River. So a few large contracts were finalized and awarded in that area, and hopefully we'll be able to be in and out and complete all the work in that project area by the end of fiscal year 25. So I think that is it for Bend Fort Rock, and then down to Crescent. Surveyors is a large veg management project. It was signed a year ago. We're actually coming out with our first IRTC or IRSC. It's called BIG, which should include about 4,000 acres of fuels treatments, along with some timber value that's paying back for those fuels treatments. So footprint acres associated with that is about 4,000 acres, and total treatment will be about 12,000 acres. So that was just awarded last week, and it's really kind of one of the first large veg management projects in Crescent area in a few years. Second to that, two kind of WUI-based projects. One kicking off is Crescent Lake WUI, which will really focus on the Crescent Lake area, primarily just fuels, hazard fuels driven project. That'll be a CE as well. And then Odell Lake WUI has been finalized, and we awarded the rest of the work, or the majority of that work, this year with priority landscape funding. So Odell and Crescent Lake WUI are the two focal areas coming into fiscal year 24 and 25 for Crescent. What else can I cover? You want to know prescribed fire season? So I'm not sure. I mean, some of you in the room have heard sort of the rundown on our spring season. It was a fairly successful season. With the pandemic, we had kind of backed off on a lot of our activities, particularly prescribed fire. So this was kind of a revamping year, re-engaging with prescribed fire. Completed about 4,500 acres across the forest. Most of those acres were really WUI driven. Those of you that are in the Sisters area know that, you know, I think pretty much all of our burning in Sisters this past spring was right in the interface surrounding Sisters proper for about 800 acres. Bend Fort Rock, primarily, like, the best accomplishments or biggest accomplishments in the WUI interface were really Ann's Butte, which is the backside of Sun River there, right on to, well, it's not Sun River, just south of Sun River, but right on to private property boundaries, landowners, and housing right there. That was for about 800 acres, the Ann's Butte burn. Very successful, and then a whole bunch of burning in the Rocket area, which is just east of 97 as you go up and over Lava Butte there. We did not get into West Bend this year. We had our eye on that area all spring and just did not have the opportunity to get in there for a number of reasons. One being smoke potential impacts to Bend, and then second, every opportunity or window on the smoke front that we rolled into the environmental conditions weren't conducive to burning in West Bend area. So didn't get in there. Hopeful that this spring we will be in West Bend again, and continue to keep our eye on sort of the West Bend area. Crescent had a relatively small prescribed burn season this past spring. I think the best accomplishment that they had was a partnership with ODF, where they were actually burning on Gilchrist State Forest, which was a nice cooperative program, working in conjunction with Gilchrist State Forest for restoration benefit and ODF. No cross-boundary burning this past spring. We do have a number on the books, the largest being Taylor Northwest. So we have about 1,000 acre private landowner burn with Taylor Northwest in agreement, and we will be looking at that in spring of 24. So just above Chevron Park there, out in that country. As far as fall goes, we're certainly anticipating some prescribed burning this fall. We're waiting to get out of our wildfire conditions, which this week is taking us further there. So we'll be looking probably first week of October to start doing some prescribed burning locally. Generally in the fall, we tend to kind of push out to our back 40, as we call it, so East Fort Rock, those sorts of areas, just because the opportunities out there tend to exist a bit longer than closer in. But based on weather and all that, we'll be looking at all our options. There's plenty of options on the table for prescribed burning across the forest. As far as wildfire season goes, obviously you're aware of the Pete's Lake fire, which has been on the landscape for about 4 weeks now. Been very benign for the last 2 or 3 weeks, had a pickup in behavior over the last 5 days or so, and now it's kind of tempered once again with the changing background conditions. Everything's looking good up there. It's been a roller coaster of transitions between various organizations, from type 3 to type 2 team, back to type 3, down to type 4. And now it's been absorbed by the type 1 team that is managing the Lookout and Table Mountain fire over on the west side. So they just absorbed it this morning for a host of reasons. It made sense for them just to take that fire on. Outside of that, we've been significantly active in the area, but no large fire really this summer, which has been a good thing. Lots of initial attack. And then the Pacific Northwest has had a generally quite large fire season comparatively to the rest of the nation. So folks have been engaged and active all summer throughout the Pacific Northwest, from the Canadian border all the way down to the southern Oregon border with North Ops and NorCal. So folks are getting tired and ready for it to be done, which hopefully that is coming. So with that banter, any questions I can answer for folks? Or
On the cabin view?
Yeah.
project, is there gonna be prescribed burn as part of that, or is that just masticating?
No, there's lots of prescribed fire planned in that project area. I don't anticipate being in there for probably 2 years as we get the contract work done first, and then we'll come in with prescribed fire entry after the fact, certainly.
How difficult are you finding it to get companies that will come in and actually do the contracts? Are you getting multiple bids, or are you getting responses?
Yeah, we've been successful. I mean, we're lucky here that we have a lot of local players like Quicksilver and Gilchrist down in Crescent, local mills that actually want to do this work. So we've been successful, and to date haven't had an issue with finding bidders for some of these large veg management projects.
So that's not holding you back on any of this?
No, not currently, not currently. Yeah, no, we're looking good in that realm, and with the priority landscape funding, it gives us the ability to move some of these contracts forward at a quicker pace and award whole packages instead of a whole bunch of option items waiting for fiscal year allocations over numerous years. And I think that's more attractive to some of these contract companies, and they can take a 5-year contract and be awarded it all at once and not really question, well, am I gonna get the rest of this, or is it gonna remain an option item that they can never fund, sort of deal. So yeah, to date, we haven't had any issues with finding a workforce to get the work done. So hopefully that remains the case. Yeah.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for the update.
Sure.
And starting with the larger picture, is the funding that's starting to come in, does that look like it's going to be extended enough for you to be able to make longer range plans to address the pace and scale?
Right. That is a good question. So I don't have the answer is somewhat cloudy at this point. I would say through fiscal year 25, so calendar year 25, 26, essentially, I think we are looking good to continue to receive priority landscape funding. Post that, you know, the idea was there was always going to be this steady, a 10-year stream of steady funding into the system. I don't anticipate that probably at this point, but for 3 to 5 years, I think we are looking fairly good. And then we'll see where we're at. So that kind of answer your question in a roundabout way.
Yeah. So
I deal with it the same way
Yeah.
every year. It's kind of like, is this going to keep happening? And
yeah,
for the time being, I think.
because I know you can do, you have to do massive amount of planning for projects.
Yeah.
And then the funds have to be there.
Exactly.
And you know, it's good that you were able to do more prescribed burning this year, but you know how many acres are in that Deschutes National Forest. There's a lot. So this fall, will the concentration be more on like pile burning?
Generally, our fall season is short-lived just because we come out of wildfire season and then we either get a whole bunch of moisture or snow or whatever. So, I mean, we anticipate some general underburning, certainly. It's not our large, generally our big season. Spring is when we really get after prescribed burning. So then we'll roll into sort of that pile burning operation through the winter months.
And then in South County, as part of our interface area, Road 42 G&A, any update on?
Yeah,
that?
so ODF we're in the process of, so the NEPA work, the project level or the planning side of it is coming to completion, and then we'll be working with ODF to package that up probably in 24, so this coming year. So ODF will manage sort of the contract side of that. So that will be in the works in 24 and then probably implementation in 25 would be my guess.
So maybe a sign off in 24.
Yeah, early 24, if not end of calendar year 23, and then packaging of the contract in 24 with a hopeful award of that at the end of 24, and then implementation starting in 25.
And then implementation, generally speaking, you usually give yourself about 5 years.
Yeah, I think for that one, it will not be that long. I would say probably 2 years likely on that. At least on the contract sort of work, and then we'll be in there with prescribed fire, et cetera, for longer.
And then that particular one includes some meadow restoration and some riparian restoration. Are you anticipating, because I I think that would probably be pretty labor intensive in those areas because you can't use a lot of equipment.
Right.
So maybe would you be availing yourselves of like correction crews or something for some of that?
Yeah, we'll probably be working with some of, our collaborating partners in sort of that riparian and meadow restoration to determine what the best mechanism of meeting the intent of those objectives. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then last one is the Twin Project, which is really large, but
yeah,
last I heard it was kind of in limbo or something.
it remains in limbo. It's still being worked on. The biggest issue with the Twin Project is there's a lot of late successional reserve, which is basically no touch zone, and then a whole bunch of spotted owl habitat and critical habitat. So it's been an interesting project. I worked on it in 2019 actually, and it's still ongoing. So we have intentions of, figuring out at some point we'll be doing work up there. It's just kind of getting sliced and diced based on a lot of the habitat issues in consultation with Fish and Wildlife Service. So I anticipate maybe end of 24, 25 getting a decision on that, but there's just a lot of issues in that country we're finding.
Yeah, that area is heavily recreated and has a lot of dispersed camping,
Absolutely.
Which amounts to a lot of potential starts.
Yeah.
And plenty of fuel.
Yeah.
I guess there's plenty of fuel everywhere, but it's west of us, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, we want to go into these projects and not whittle them down to an extent that it's not effective to be in there. So I think at this point with Twin, that's one of the biggest hangups. It's like, well, if we drop that, do we just need to reconsider sort of our entire objectives in this project area to start just looking at more fuels driven projects or containment features that need working, roadside work, things like that. So a lot of the issue really stems from, Cedar Creek fire last year, which more or less came up to the boundary of Twin.
Right.
There was a whole bunch of critical habitat in there that was lost. So as the west side gets pocketed with sort of extreme and large fire, critical habitat gets more into the mix, and what we have on our side of the Cascades becomes more relevant to Fish and Wildlife in terms of sustaining habitat for northern spotted owls.
Yeah, if there's a big fire, then there's no habitat for any of that.
Right. I mean, if you lose 30,000 acres of critical habitat, then the habitat that we have, which isn't the best habitat, becomes much more primary in the eyes of, those analytics. So that's been, Twin's been interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
How much staffing do you have in your division?
In like our whole fire management program?
In order to manage all of this projects.
So sort of in the, so on the fuels, I mean, we have different components of staffing. So there's obviously a silvicultural part, a fuels part, each district. And I'll speak to the fuel side of the house. So Sisters and Crescent, which are smaller districts, they have two sort of project managers in the fuels realm. So an assistant fire management officer operations and an assistant fire management officer planning. And then each of those districts have 3 fuels technicians that are kind of the on the ground folks that are assisting with layout, contract management, prescribed fire. So that's the situation in Sisters and Crescent. And then Bent Fort Rock, which is triple the size of both those districts. Really, once was 2 national forests, the Bend Forest and the Fort Rock. They have, on the organization 4 assistant fire management officer fuels, 3 of them are filled right now, and then they have 4 fuels technicians, so. Or 1.3 million acres of ground, so
Yeah.
not a super robust staff, but they get a lot of work done, so. And then we have all of our suppression entity, which is, Bend Fort Rock. During wildfire season, essentially has 80 or so personnel, and that tapers as we roll out of wildfire season, lose temporary employees, et cetera.
So you're not finding your staffing is limiting?
Uh,
Ability to carry out?
Well, capacity is always limiting to an extent, but we've actually been able to somewhat bolster over the last 3 to 5 years our fuel staffing. It was significantly less in the past, and with fuels and hazardous fuels related work being really in the eye of many folks now, we've been able to somewhat bolster our staff and capacity over the last few years, so it's been a good thing.
So the Dean's question about funding, if funding decreases, say in the next 2 years.
Right.
What'll happen to the staff?
No, I think we'll retain sort of our staffing levels, and we've been able to manage the funding decently. What's occurred is it just elongates the time to get from cradle to grave on these projects. So we'll continue to do the same work. It just takes longer to fund that work over time. And more importantly, I think, is we have to chase a lot of opportunities to figure out how to fund that work instead of just a base allocation. So a lot of folks in this room are privy to Joint Chiefs project, CFLR project, which all takes time, staffing capacity to write proposals, report on each of these different small pots of money, where the national priority landscape, which has a ton of reporting requirements, if not more, but it comes with, a large fund or pot of money that is intended to come in early in the fiscal year and, allow us to award entire projects in one push versus kind of having to extend it over multiple years, multiple funding cycles.
So the obvious question is, at the local level here, what can we do in order to help influence your funding level?
Yeah, that's a good question that I probably don't have a great answer to right now. I think, a lot of what is ongoing behind the scenes with, entities like COSA and closed slurp grant opportunities. To me, that's sort of DCFP, all these entities that has probably heard of. I think that's the next step, really, as a community, to be very tight knit and have that umbrella organization that's speaking for a lot of these other smaller organizations that collectively and collaboratively were engaged and working towards certain opportunities together, and with Kevin and others being ready for those opportunities and being able to walk into them pretty rapidly with planned projects, et cetera, to grab onto those funding pools as they're available, which currently there seems to be a lot of interest in, hazardous fuels management, and there's a lot of players in it and lots of opportunities. So again, really having that umbrella organization that we're all working under and collaboratively to best be prepared for maximizing those opportunities.
Thank you.
For a total layperson, can you explain what WUI is?
WUI is Wildland Urban Interface, so
Okay.
basically right where, national forest or whatever wildland, BLM, county, doesn't matter, private, interfaces with our community.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's the entire county.
that's the entire county.
So I've been in touch with Natalie Coombs a little bit, and she had mentioned in the next 6 months to a year, you guys are doing a boat project adjacent to September. Do you have any updated information on that? And then I was gonna ask her, you know, if you guys leading up to that would, you know, be willing to put together a, you know, fire-wise educational, you know, some meeting for the community leading up to that at all.
Yeah, absolutely, on any sort of meeting you guys want, we can engage, and Natalie, she's already communicating with you.
Yeah, she's been busy. I think she's been out fighting fires.
She
and
has
stuff
been,
like that, so.
yeah,
Kind of leaving her alone a little bit, but this is a good opportunity to
yeah.
ask you about it.
Yeah, so Natalie or Robert Newey would be a great conduit to kind of set up whatever sort of information-based meeting and discussion you wanna have.
Yeah, that'd be
certainly.
great, you know, in the spring or, you know, leading
Yeah.
up to the project.
Absolutely, and so what you're speaking to is, we call it the West Bend Junction Mastication Project, so it should be final awarded this week. And then I would anticipate work probably starting anytime, you know, the next couple months.
Awesome.
And that's more or less country that has, you know, some portions of it have been treated and masticated in the past, but it's basically that west boundary.
There's a good
To
section.
you guys.
Yep, there's just a little bit north and south, you know, of the section that you guys did a few years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly when, but
Yeah.
all that area looks fantastic.
So yeah, I anticipate that project being awarded again this week, hopefully, and that work will start as soon as the contractor's ready to move.
Awesome.
So, yeah, and Natalie is a great conduit to further figure that out. Good, thank you. Happy to meet.
Cool. Any more questions? Okay, well, thanks, Trevor. I really appreciate the update. Sure, it was really informative.
We just have an update from Lon Lee from Butte. He is one of the co-chairs for the Project Wildfire Neighborhood Coalition. And that's a subcommittee that we started off of Project Wildfire. Just wanted to give him the floor to kind of just go over what we're doing there and just extend the invitation. And so you want me to share this?
Sure. So thanks, Corinne. And just wanted to give a little overview on, as you mentioned, the subcommittee, which is called Project Wildfire Neighborhood Coalition. It was formed earlier this year, and the intent is to really help communities, HOAs, who want to either become FireWise or are FireWise and want to take it to the next level. Help them with materials, mentoring. The hard part is identifying them and getting them recruited, but once we do that, we have resources and developing resources that can help them take it to the next level. We meet monthly, every third Wednesday at the road department. And so if any of you know of communities that are interested or would be interested, please invite them to come. And you're all invited anytime to come to the meetings as well, so.
What time are those meetings?
2 o'clock to 4 o'clock on the third Wednesday. We have one tomorrow.
Yeah, so they
Tomorrow.
they're just right in conjunction with it.
Yeah, and as you can see, our mission, it's a little small, but our mission is to support Project Wildfire's mission by improving fire adapted readiness one neighborhood at a time. So again, we're trying to find neighborhoods, and I'll talk to a letter we're about to send out. It'll probably be, it will be our biggest attempt yet to recruit HOAs and communities. And we want a broad diversity of Deschutes County communities. So we're looking to include anybody that has that interest. Our membership currently is 13 HOAs or various communities. And then we have 10 agencies and advisors who are part of this subcommittee. Leadership, we established the leadership. We have 2 co-chairs. I'm one. Elizabeth from Parks Broken Top is one. Robin Church is our secretary. And we also have technical support in Craig Renkert, who has established a Google Drive for us, and that's where we deposit the library and the resources that we have. Resource offerings are this, we have documents, so we're trying to avoid recreating the wheel for people. which we went through at our review. We sort of developed our own program over the last couple of years. And while it worked out great, it would have been nice to have some support and some additional information before we got started. And so that's really kind of what we're trying to do for people is, take some experience in some existing resources and just make it easy and to drop it into their situation and expand it quickly so that they can, pardon me?
Kind of a template.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the organization, the community, because, we're a large organization, so it works well for large HOAs, I assume, and it has. But they're all over the board, so we're trying to just match, like mentorship, we try to match the right mentor with their situation so that we can expedite the process and get them up and running quicker than they would be able to do themselves. So the resource offerings, we have this, we're developing a documentation. We, at our review and others, have dropped in a lot of the materials we've already developed or have. We get information from some of our advisors and agencies that do the same thing. So that's a wealth of information for people that really don't know where to start. So it really helps in that regard. We have mentorship capabilities because we have people on the committee that are experienced, have developed and are maintaining and managing their own HOAs, their own Firewise communities. So we have good mentorship capability. And then we have the agency supports of not only the ones that are part of the subcommittee, but also the steering committee of Project Wildfire has a long list of additional resources that, if it makes sense, we can bring those folks in to help with a mentorship opportunity or whatever needs to be happening in that particular community. Because we reach out to all of the areas of the county. And say we're in Lapine, it would be nice to have some Lapine-based resources, the fire department or whoever, or sisters. So we want to try to match the right resources with the right situation, if at all possible. So we have a wealth of agencies and advisors we can go to, either directly through the subcommittee or indirectly through the Project Wildfire group. Community recruitment, that's, we want to get as many people involved that want to be involved. And the problem right now is people don't know about us. Some of the HOA, some of the Firewise coordinators. So we have a letter here that's been drafted that's going to go out hopefully tomorrow. We'll finalize this letter at our meeting and it'll go out to, I believe it's 60 some, not sure the exact number, Firewise coordinators, inviting them, letting them know what we do.
Is it 63 now?
63 active, but yeah.
And then we've got what, 7 or something that are not quite confirmed yet? What is?
The website's not totally accurate. I know Ross is working with some currently. And we've done a few assessments with some that are working towards becoming firewise. So there could be more than 7 in the works right now.
But whatever we have a current list, current to us anyway, that we will be sending out to all the coordinators that's introducing who we are, what we do, what we're trying to do, how we can help anybody that has an interest in, like I say, becoming Firewise or taking their Firewise situation and expanding it. So the letter hopefully will go out tomorrow or soon thereafter, and this will be by far our biggest push for recruitment. But please also word of mouth, and if you know of any situations or communities that are also looking for that, please invite them to join us or email us with a level of interest, and we'll have to get you a specific contact for the time being. They could email me in terms of just, I'm showing a level of interest. We can get back to them and have the right person get a hold of them. I'll give you my email address if anybody's interested. It's lon, L-O-N, .leneve, L-E-N-E-V-E, @gmail.com. So again, this letter is going to go out soon, and we're hoping that will stir a lot of interest, and we'll see a lot more people at our October meetings. But anybody's always welcome to our meetings, just like this meeting, right? So if anybody wants to come as an advisor, as a agency, as just a level of interest, I know Dean, you've joined us for a meeting to see what it's all about. We always encourage people just to show up, and we also do it via Zoom like this, so people don't have to physically show up. So we have that capability as well. And then in addition to some of the recruitment, and Melissa's big on this, are the events that many of the agencies conduct. trainings and so forth. And so again, just keep in mind that those are good opportunities to introduce the neighborhood coalition as well. And on the bottom there, as mentioned earlier, sorry, that's okay. So County Roadhouse, County Road Department, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock every third Wednesday. Again, tomorrow's an opportunity if anybody wants to come. And then this is just a quick list that we need to finalize and update a little bit. We have a couple of typos and different things, but coalition members, you can see the 13 I mentioned, the partner agencies and advisors. There's the 10 that currently are considered part of the subcommittee. And we're always welcoming more. And again, when we send this letter out, in our minds, we know that we also have the steering committee resources as part of Project Wildfire that we can use if need be with the various communities and HOAs that may show an interest. So Melissa, Ray, you guys have anything else you'd like to add to that?
I'll touch on a few little points here. So yeah, when this was all put together, it was to just unite people that are wanting to become Firewise. 95% of my questions every day and calls are, I want to become Firewise. I have no idea what to do. Where do I start? And there's so many good resources with all of the 63 or however many Firewise communities we already have. And so we were trying to figure out a way for them to get together. I just want to stress this is completely an educational outreach committee. So people have kind of they stand back, what I've seen, they stand back because of liability issues. I don't want to tell this person to do something because I don't know if it's the right thing or not. We are going off of NFPA Firewise recommendations as of now. And so as long as we are educating the new communities and staying on task and in scope with that, we're going to be completely fine. Doing assessments is a big thing. So there's one of me with the fire department, and I do, I don't know, 25 assessments a week. That's a lot of work for one person. And so I know that Aubrey Butte, I've trained 5 or 6 of them, and now they do their own community. And so if you're interested in something like that, where you can reach more people, please contact me and let me know. I last week have 4 other neighborhood associations that are interested in becoming Firewise. And the first thing is to just send them to Lon and say, there are so many resources. What part of the county are you in? We can help you. We do have a list of contractors, you know, out there. This list is not, we're not like advocating for any specific contractor. This is just that they've shown us that they are bonded and insured, and that they're willing to help with Firewise activities. So just know this is an educational outreach. I'm one of the advisors, so if you're within city limits or the rural district, I am more than happy to come out and do an assessment. Lon mentioned the presentations. I think I've done, I don't know, 100 in the last year, and I'm willing to do more. And so if you have an HOA meeting or any kind of meeting that you are getting people together, I'll come and talk about what this is, you know, and we can reach out. The biggest thing that I've seen that's our challenge, Lon, is that nobody knows about us, like you said. And so we're gonna kind of rely on all of us and everybody online to put that word out that there is a community that will help you become Firewise. We have all of the resources in one spot. And so you don't have to go online and look at all these different places. We have packets that we can give out. So that's the big push for this. And thank you, Lon, for taking that on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any questions? And
I was just gonna say, with what the insurance companies are doing in our country, looking at, you know, fire areas, and then we've got the tornado, you know, the hurricanes in Florida, they are really looking at costs. So it's really great that you're, you know, leading this charge to educate our public better. As someone who came from Southern California, where we had, you know, fires, you know, we always had to worry about it. So that's what I don't understand here. The fire department in LA County came to my house every year and had a checklist. And if you didn't do it, they would charge you 4 times more than what that costs. So I would really hope more people would join you in your, you know, weekly assessments, just so to give people the information they need to use when I walk door to door, people would have firewood stacked up against their house. Now, that ignites and that house is gonna be history if it does catch on fire, because how can you stop it?
And I can speak a little bit to what's going on in Oregon with that specifically. So I used to work for CAL FIRE and I did those LE 100 inspections where the state of California has a program. They have a WUI, Wildland Urban Interface Code. So we would go out, we'd do an initial inspection. We would write them the violations, no charge. They would have a certain amount of time to get those done. We would come back and we would look and see, you know, if there's somebody that's elderly or disabled, we had programs to get them to help clear pine needles, things like that. Because there is no WUI state code in Oregon yet, all of this that we're doing, all these efforts are all educational, and we are getting ready to have most everyone compliant by the time that this code comes out. Okay, and so when this WUI state Oregon fire code does come out, which it will, we are going to have a little bit more teeth with enforcement. Enforcement and writing tickets is not our goal. What does that do? You know, we can write somebody a ticket and it doesn't get done, and what good is that? So I want it to be clear that when this does happen, the first year or two is gonna be educational. We are going to let people know this is what needs to be done and this is what the state code says. So look forward to that in the future, that there will be inspectors that will be going out performing these assessments. I have no idea what that's gonna look like yet for a workload for a small department like City of Bend. I don't know if this Oregon State Fire Marshal is gonna be more involved. They've already had some inspectors come out and do work around here in Deschutes County. So we'll see what that looks like. But that is coming. But right now, all the inspections I'm getting and assessments are all 100% volunteer, and people are calling me for these. So yeah, thanks for that point. It's in the works. And I will tell you that this Oregon State Fire Code is probably going to be a little bit more generic across the state because we're so different climate-wise. But they're going to have that one standard of, let's say, for instance, 10 feet from, you know, any limbs 10 feet from eaves and roofs. Okay, that's gonna be a standard. It's up to the inspector to work with that person. And so that first 2 years is gonna be a challenge, but just know that that's in the works. And that's what we're wanting to get to, is a type of inspection program for these. We already have business inspection fire programs, you know, that we do daily. So this is just the WUI code. There is an international WUI code. It's gonna pretty much mirror the exact same thing.
So are you giving your phone number out then?
No, I have a secret work phone. No one knows about.
That's,
Yes.
thank you, Melissa.
No problem. Yeah.
Yeah, you work for CAL FIRE, so you know that there's like a whole army of inspectors
Oh,
and
it's night and day
Yeah.
difference.
and
But see, all their firefighters are doing these inspections.
right.
So that is a greater workforce to go out and do these. So they have their response area. They can just go out and say, we're gonna do 25 inspections a day in our district.
Right.
We do not have that.
Chaparral canyons, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And so they get like a fix-it kind of ticket. And then if they don't do it within a certain period of time, I understand that a crew is called in to
Right.
do the work. And then if they don't or can't pay, then it just becomes like a lien on their property, so that.
Yeah.
You know,
And we're not trying to do that. We're trying to educate and get those resources to people. But something we need to understand is that we can't police, we're not in charge of your own personal properties.
Right.
It is the homeowner's responsibility to get this done. Make sure that you have put effort towards your home. That way, when there is a wildfire, it buys you a little bit more time for a resource to show up and defend your home.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's great.
Yeah.
What we're running into is, well, capacity for one thing.
For sure.
There's been messaging going out recently, oh, if you're interested in getting an assessment, you know, contact your local fire district. Well, I'm in South Deschutes County as part of the Lapine Rural Fire Department. I would like it if they would participate in Project Wildfire a little more.
I'm headed to a co-op meeting there today in
Oh.
Lapine, so
Please bring that up
I'm on.
because they have a new fire chief too.
yeah.
But, so, for instance, Upper Deschutes River communities, we do assessments but related to a couple of different defensible space programs that we administer. And the difficulty is always in the capacity. And I'm anticipating that at some point, especially when the map comes out, you know, that maybe a lot of people will want to have assessments done, but there isn't a current capacity for it. And if you have volunteers doing it, they're not going to want to do it full time, or they'll get burned out. So I'm just bringing that up. There's a lot of need for that. And I think that there's going to be a lot of interest for that, but how do we become more ready?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Capacity, anybody in a fire or fuels management position knows capacity. And I think that it's important right now. We have a couple challenges. I mean, we're facing coming out of COVID and going to people's homes. That didn't happen for 3 years. We didn't go to people's homes. So now how do we establish that again, that relationship with going and walking on somebody's property to do these? That's a challenge. And so education, push it, people. If you're excited about this, if you want to stay safe, it starts literally in your own communities. And so if we count with this coalition, we're helping put you in the right place or give you the right resources of who you can talk with, you know. I'm really excited about today's meeting in La Pine. I'm gonna go meet them and speak with them because I also live in La Pine. And so I am really curious as to what's gonna happen in there. So, you know, we're all in this. We all share the exact same risk, you know, the risk of fire. We have so many agencies in this county. We all just need to be consistent and work together. And so please just everybody be patient too, because we are trying to push something brand new that's never happened before.
So just to finish, we're doing assessments, but we're not wearing badges or anything. But just this week, we've been working on rewriting our liability release. We need one of those if we go on their property just to do an assessment, or especially if we're involved in contractors doing work.
Sure.
But people are skeptical.
Absolutely.
And
it's lack of education.
And oftentimes like
A
distrustful of the intentions or what that's going to mean to them. And so in the La Pine area, which is getting more attention because it's one of the areas that has the most need. It's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. So anything that can be done in that area is welcome. We're trying to help, but it's already going outside of our CWPP to extend assistance into La Pine CWPP. And I guess the main thing is it's hard to help them. The ones that need the most help, it's hard to help them.
And that is a very good point. And that's what a lot of us fire agencies are doing, is identifying those challenges or those communities or those underserved community, whatever you want to call it. And how do we, and for example, I will bring this up. I'm working right now at Deschutes River Woods. Out of my 100 assessments I've done in the last year, 2 people from Deschutes River Woods called for them. Most of them were in the center of Bend, in the middle of town, which still has a great risk. But the place that needs it the most, that's a target right there that we know we need to engage with them more. We need to give them the resources. We need to educate more. So we are taking that prioritization right now, looking at who are we not contacting, where's the biggest need, and how do we get to them? And it's all just going to take a little bit of time. So, yeah.
Thank you. You're
welcome.
I had a question about the Neighborhood Coalition, Vermont. Besides helping and mentoring new Firewise communities, and our community is a fairly new one too, but will it also be a place where HOAs and Firewise communities can come together and share what has worked, what hasn't worked?
That's exactly what
That's
it's for.
exactly-
That's
okay.
exactly what it's for. So
Okay,
we kind of take the best practices of the existing HOAs and Firewise communities, especially the members, as well as from the agencies, and just try to make it a one-stop shop for people that really want to either get started or take it to the next level. So that's exactly what it's about. And then you also, in addition to programs and documents and resources that they can use, we have people that have gone through it, who can act as a mentor and help them along. For example, Dean, we've done a lot of what you were asking about in our review. We have a team of 7 different assessor teams that were educated a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we've conducted about 300 assessments, volunteer assessments. And then try to educate our 782 property owners as best we can. And so it's just, you constantly have to pepper people with information and requests to sign up for an assessment. And then, you know, the most important part obviously is remediation. So trying to get them, you know, not only get your property assessed, but now the work starts, get it done, either do it yourself, or we try to provide resources that they can pick from.
There's an advantage in Aubrey Butte that you have the organizations you do and the homeowners association, for instance. In South County in the Pine area, there's large areas that have like no organization.
Totally agree. And so that's
And to my knowledge, I think there's only in that entire CWPP for Lapine, there's only one Firewise community.
Right.
And they're going all the time. They just got a big grant and everything. I think it's Ponderosa.
So the challenge there is how do you use the existing resources and agencies to try to create at least a fire-focused community amongst people that aren't as organized as an HOA is.
And people aren't even asking for something like that.
But if we do some kind of public outreach in a community like that and we get 5 people the first year,
Yeah.
fabulous. Now, what if we get 7 people the next year or 8 residences the next year? That's how we slowly build this process. I hate to say it, but I like to do it through peer pressure because your neighbor does it and they look at a Firewise home or property and they go, wow, that actually doesn't look bad. I didn't have to take all my trees away. I didn't have to cut all my brush back. Wow, this looks fabulous. I might participate. And that was pretty easy. You know, we want to do that. We want to show them, we want to educate them, and then we want to just motivate, encourage those public outreach meetings or, you know, call the fire department, have an engine come out, little kids play while the adults talk about what to do in their community. I mean, we bring food, you know, barbecue, people will come. So try to figure out these fun, engaging ways, and it's a little at a time. You are not going to get a meeting with 500 people that are all going to say, yes, let's do this. It's not going to happen. We have to start out super small, and that's where all these resources come from with our neighborhood coalition, is that they've all been through this. They know the struggles of starting at the beginning.
You brought up Deschutes River Woods, and that's a great example. He's not here today. I don't know if he's on the line. But
Great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes it only takes like one motivated individual working with their immediate neighbors. You can become a Firewise site with only 8, I think.
Yep.
And so it started like that, and then it's growing. Deschutes River Woods is a huge community.
And they have over $400,000 right now from grants
Right.
combined.
Right, and it's because the assistance comes to people that are already trying to do something.
Because they have an organized
And so if we could
organization.
get any kind of a nucleus going, for instance, in like the Dave Road corridor, you know, it could,
Oh, I think it will. I think I see good things in South County. I do. I see a
Yeah.
good future for South County. Once people understand what it's about, what it takes, and it's not expensive to get started. It just takes a few little things. So, and that's our part. That's our push is, hey, you know, there's this thing called Firewise. We lead the nation in it. You know, why don't you become a part of that?
I've observed that, well, we've been doing Firewise ever since it started. They're very old.
You were the first one,
The
right?
very first one.
Yes.
We bankrupted it. No, we won't go there. Observation is, it always takes one or two individuals who are concerned. And they'll find that nobody else cares, because nobody else knows. Neighborhood Coalition is the perfect organization, perfect site for those people, that type of person to come and say, you're not alone. They want to know what to do. How do they get other neighbors concerned, informed? And how do we not become the Gestapo? Because you're not going to do anything by enforcement. This is the perfect location and the venue for them to come and learn how to do it step by step, because that's what people want. What do I do? What's my first step? My big problem is this, so what do I do? Oh no, my big problem is that. What do I do? And talk with neighborhood association or wildfire communities. Someone will match exactly what you've done. Even if you're out in South County with large acreage, dispersed population, I guarantee you, there'll be somebody who's pretty close to what you've done. Sundance, no neighborhood association, no homeowner association, they got Firewise status because one person decided they wanted to do it and they rolled it out. They learned how to do it through the people who are part of this coalition. That's the power here. The other observation I've always had is Oregon is very different from California. I remember California goes, here's your fine, best of luck, welcome to California. Oregon says, wait a minute, how can we help you get this done? The thing that drove it home to me was I was driving over the Oregon border from California to Oregon, going 70 miles an hour because there's nobody out there. And the state patrol guy's coming towards me. I'm going, oh, goody. And all he did was go, slow it down. I'm like, we are very different here.
But
We
my,
want to educate. Don't turn me in.
no, but my friend who lives in Deschutes River Woods actually had her insurance triple.
That's different.
It tripled this year.
That's insurance companies.
No, I know, but I mean, that's part of, if you, I had USA Council putting new policy for me when a fire went around my house and the top of the Santa Monica Mountains. They said, no, we won't come. And I go, it's burned now. Nothing is gonna burn here. They go, we don't care. We're not going to insure you.
Right.
So, and I mean, I lost one tree.
Yeah, I'm talking about the public attitude toward each other.
Well,
We try to work with each other rather than to force each other to do things. You don't get anywhere by forcing your neighbor to do something. But you're right, if people start seeing that somebody else is doing something that doesn't end up in a concrete asphalted landscape, and it looks good to them, they said, well, I can do this too. If they know why you want to do it. Just doing it doesn't make doesn't give them a reason to do it. They're just saying you're nuts.
and
But if
actually,
they know that their insurance is gonna stay,
right,
they'll be insured, or that their house would be safe from fire. And they and their pets and all of their photos and memorabilia may survive even when the fire department or the resources aren't there, which they will not be during a conflagration. They'll learn that from the coalition, how to do this. I think that this coalition is probably the best thing we've come up with to really expand the Firewise.
definitely. I know I think it was like 35 Firewise when I started in 19. So we've actually come a really long ways. And then the governor actually likes the biomass plant idea over in Crook County. So if I know it really doesn't quite cost, but then to think that the landfill was full for fire free this fall, if we can get that biomass plant going, that could really be helpful. Because we did a biomass grant for Mount Bachelor, but they already have enough things there to burn, they don't want ours. To save on their propane bills.
Yeah, that's definitely an option.
Biomass, instead of like a plant, for the future, it's gonna need to be
Localized.
more localized, because the big thing is like, how do you transport that material, it's hard for us just to get to not landfill, I mean, but if there's like a biomass plant, they need to have, well, it's complicated subject, so
I mean, we're getting one amount, if we can get one amount Bachelor and we can get one in Crook County, at least we're getting
Oh,
more
you're
than I
talking
have.
about a burning kind of thing, I'm talking about a process, because
Right.
that's really, you know, if we're gonna treat a lot of small diameter material, you know, in the EAs, it says, well, we'll use the biomass if we can, but practically that doesn't happen, so you have, you know, huge log decks that, you know, that need to be burned because it's just not practical to transport it to where it can be processed.
Alright, guys, I just wanna leave some time for
Yeah,
some updates for roundtable updates, so, very kind of short. Does anyone have
all this.
anything, any news or
See if we
anything
can get
they
it.
wanna share?
No, I got typically too.
Any updates starting over there? Anything?
Okay.
I think we've kind of covered a lot today.
Yeah, I think the struggle for the city fire department is still common areas and HOAs. I mean, that is something I deal with on a daily basis. What I would like to say is please come and work with me. We will work with you. We will give you the best recommendations. But understand that there are processes in, you know, the mix here. And a lot of times I get, well, our CCNRs say that we can't have a metal fence. Hey, guess what? Time to take a look at those CCNRs and get them changed, okay? So these are things that we're talking about. You can become firewise, you can do things to your home. Don't let an HOA or a community association or anybody, you know, give you that backlash. We are here to help and educate them and try to get this process safe for everybody. So that's a big one for us. Let's see what else. We're still in fire season, so please spread the word. We are not burning. We're responding to a lot of burning calls lately. People get a little bit of, you know, fall fever and start burning. No, we're still in high fire danger, so let's not do that. What else do I have? If anyone's interested, October 14th is a Saturday. That is our biggest open house, Wildfire open house event. It's our annual event. I would love to see people from the co-op, from Project Wildfire, all of you there. It's at the North Station on Jameson. That's by the Deschutes County Sheriff's Department. Goes from 10 to 2, family event. We're gonna land the helicopter. You can take a look at that. You can play in a fire engine. We've got wildfire booths going on where kids can learn about how to put out a safe campfire. That was our big push this year because we respond to so many abandoned campfires. So that'll be a big push. Home Depot's gonna be there with kids activities. I mean, this is a big event for us. So National Fire Prevention Week is that same week. And the theme this year is cooking safety. And so we're gonna have a cooking, safe cooking demo. So we have a big kitchen. We're gonna light a pan on fire and show you how to properly put it out. So fun things, so just spread the word.
Fire extinguisher.
That's gonna be at the North Station, off of 20, so it's off of Jameson actually, right there, by Deschutes County. I don't have the exact address on me, but right there by Deschutes County Sheriff's Department, 10 to 2. Free ice cream for everyone.
Right.
They should have put Everhard's plug in there.
Yeah, whose ice cream is
Yes,
it
it's
and what
Everhard,
flavors?
Yeah.
Cool.
So, I'll just say that Tamarack is staying super busy, working in several subdivisions in Bend. And Melissa's note, we are just completing a plan for the common areas at Tetherow. Working on that and hopefully we'll get some money to put that out to bid to get the treatment areas taken care of soon. Similarly, working on a project for the North Rim subdivision. And hopefully we get some more folks interested in that kind of stuff. Work continues at Aubrey Butte, working on some messaging, trying to get more folks on the Butte interested in taking advantage of the assessments and then getting the work done. So that's really just a message.
They're actually helping us do a community risk map within our 600 acres so that we can go out to the owners and say, not only, I mean, the Butte's obviously at risk, but you in particular are in a higher risk area than average in the community. So
That's a great idea.
that helps us to have a message and a reason to go to this area. So they're working on that with us.
That's all from us.
Cool. No updates in planning other than obviously the big one at the beginning with the draft ODF maps coming out.
And for me, like Craig said, working on a big, Firewise project, and then I got another big section that I'm going for the grant on our far west end, basically our first line of defense. We have a massive common area right on Skyline Ranch that I'm, pushing for the grant area.
I think you heard my opinion.
Yeah.
Trevor, you covered that one.
Really happy. I mean, we did a nice cleanup of an area, a kind of a common area in our HOA, and it went really well. Removed a lot of sagebrush and pine needles that hadn't been touched and cones, and we still have some tree removal and limbing to do in that area, so we're not totally done, but we feel like we're making progress.
No big updates. We received funding from Forest Service to assist NRCS with technical assistance in the Joint Chiefs Boundary area. So we're getting started with doing monitoring, technical assistance, trying to do some big video success stories of some of the projects out there and what that's being done. Yeah, that's really it right now. I guess just waiting on that Senate bill. If we hear about that for funding.
The UDRC still has funds for our ongoing programs for defensible space. We're extending to the communities. And something newer is because there are resources becoming available, but you have to jump through all the hoops to apply for them and everything. And one of the catches for some of the better grant opportunities has been we've been able to extend sponsorship to communities because we're a 501c3 as a
What?
river community.
I'm ready.
So a community that doesn't have that designation can apply for a grant, for instance. We found a way to work with them to sponsor them so that they can actually get the grant. And I don't know all the details of how that's been worked out, but we've already been successful in doing that. So we'll probably have other opportunities to do that. Thank you.
Just a reminder that for anybody who lives in the Rural 5 District Number 2 service area, that the district does have up to 50% reimbursement grant for defensible space, for strictly defensible space, not common area. But defensible space, and what we look for is the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So we're looking for more than one to apply, one person to protect the community as a whole. And you can get those through our website.
We applied for the fuels grant, and also I'll let you know about the sweat equity that we're interested in that. We try to have at least 2 kind of disposal events a year. And so our community has kind of gotten used to that. So we're hoping to be able to do one this fall in some fashion. And then certainly again, next Fire Free in May of next year. And then in addition to seeing what might be available in addition to that out of the sweat equity program, like a chipper, we've never done the chipping program, for example, so.
Yeah, I have scheduled the 29th through the 9th. We have our second Firewise debris week up at Tethero, where we have 3 bins put out throughout the community. And then, so yeah, we got a good 10 days of another round of Firewise coming up.
Anyone online? Updates? Don't feel you need to say anything, but if you do, feel free.
Sure, this is Kevin Robinson of the Ochiko and Kaufmas Fire Prevention. Just a couple educational events to highlight here. We had the Latino Festival in Madras last weekend. It sounds like there was a pretty good turnout. So we participated with that. Let's see, the 23rd of this month, there's a Discover Nature Festival in Alpenglow Park. That's usually a pretty big event, a lot of kids, just everything nature. Sisters Folk Festival is coming up at the end of the month. And we'll have a prevention booth out there as well. That definitely brings in a lot of kids. And then, of course, as Melissa mentioned, we're going to be helping participate with the open house with them. And then the other thing would just be myself and Heather and a few others from the Deschutes working on the unhoused. There's been several meetings so far just to kind of help that situation with reducing and mitigating the risk with that population. So that's all I have.
When is the Nature Festival?
The 23rd of September
Thank you.
in Alpenglow Park, midday roughly.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Well, it looks like we're out of time, so I don't wanna keep anyone here longer than we need to. Thank you for all that information. I think that was a really good meeting, had a lot of information, a lot of good discussion. So again, our neighborhood coalition meeting is tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the road department. Spread the word, and we can have more discussions. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.